Throughout the history, it has been the inaction of those who could have acted, the indifference of those who should have known better, the silence of the voice of justice when it mattered most, that has made it possible for evil to triumph. It's better to give. Wise men have always known the deep and pervading truth that it is better to give than to receive. For even as it conflicts with selfish and ambitious desires, it moderates and controls them. Giving always demands sacrifice to overcome the temptation to enjoy mere daily comfort, to press resolutely and patiently forward on the scheduled way, or true test of the high degree of determination that should bind you together. Memories of past injustices should not divert us from the more pressing business at hand. We must live in peace with our former colonizers, shunning recrimination and bitterness and forswearing the luxury of vengeance and retaliation, lest the acid of hatred erode our souls and poison our hearts. Let us act as befits the dignity which we claim for ourselves as Africans, proud of our own special qualities, distinctions, and abilities. We must speak out on major issues courageously, openly, and honestly, and in blunt terms of right and wrong. If we yield to blandishments or threats, if we compromise when no honorable compromise is possible, our influence will be sadly diminished and our prestige woefully prejudiced and weakened. On this day, which men of earth and angels of heaven could neither have foreseen nor known, I give thanks unutterable by the mouth of man to the living God, who has enabled me to be present among you today. Today is the beginning of a new era in the history of Ethiopia. Since this is so, do not reward evil for evil. Do not commit any act of cruelty like those which the enemy has commanded against us. Do not allow the enemy any occasion to foul our good name. We shall take this weapon, his weapon, and make him return by the way he entered. We believe in cooperation and collaboration to promote the cause of international security, the equality of man, and the welfare of mankind. We believe in the peaceful settlement of all disputes without resorting to force. And in accordance with the character and the charter of OAU, we will strive to eradicate colonialism, racism, apartheid from the face of the earth, to frustrate the efforts being made by foreign powers to dictate the destiny of the African continent, and we will continue to stand.
Conversations across time, 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 conversations.
It can get worse. Political violence in America is as American as apple pie and motherhood. Going way back to when the colonists came here from England, there has been political discourse and political violence. So watch carefully, because we're going to talk about what needs to be done to have political discourse, but to stem the tide of violence.
Good evening. Welcome to the final episode in a series that we are calling It Could Get Worse. I want to introduce you to our panel, and we'll take up where we left off last week. It could get worse. That's where we are. Now the question is, what do we do? So tonight, joining us again is Irv Madnick, defense counsel, and he's in his defense counsel mode. You watch him rumble. Thank you, Irv, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And seated next to Irv is Mark Hoffman. Mark Hoffman is the Conversation Across Time historian. He's a retired history teacher. He's played many roles on Conversations Across Time over the years, and we are happy to have Mark here as Mark. Thank you, Mark, for being here.
Good to be back.
And seated next to Mark Hoffman is the Emperor Hailee Salassie, who was the Emperor of Ethiopia from 1930 to 1974, and his leadership was characterized by a high degree of moral guidance in the way that he took his country. Now, when we broke last week, we talked, I was pontificating, I guess this is the best way to describe it, on the fact that the Democrats have not had a message. They've not had a message that spoke to the people. Donald Trump is sitting in the White House because he connected to people on a very emotional level. I mean, that's what he did. And people went out to vote for him because they thought he was going to make their lives better, even though they were voting against their own interests.
Well, his message was fear.
His message was fear. That's right.
And he played on fear.
Yes.
And you say the Democrats didn't have a message. Actually, one Democrat did have a message.
Bernie Sanders.
Yes,
Bernie Sanders
had a message.
a specific, clear message
Yes.
that would have and should have appealed to all of those people that apparently turned the election over to Trump. And that, I mean, he called for free college education for a number of people. He called for universal health care. He called for breaking up the large investment banks and making them literally investment banks and not getting involved in other banking things and risky banking things. He called for all the things that would help the general public.
A populist message.
A very, very
He had the
populist
same message that Trump had, except minus the
Minus the fear.
the
And
fear.
probably because of the fact that the Democrats believed that it was Hillary Clinton's turn, and I really believe this happened, and that they did everything that they could to ensure that she would be the nominee, with all of the, all of the drawbacks that she had and her emails and all the other crap that she. They still went because he did tremendously good in the primaries against her.
Yes, he did.
And with just a little pushing
But-
here or there, he could have easily won the nomination.
Yeah, well, they
And I
did.
really believe if he won the nomination
He would have won
He
easy.
would have won.
easily,
Easily, because he
Because
would have.
there was a message.
He would have
Yes.
got the.
So
yeah,
if
but I agree with you 100%. But don't forget, what's her Debbie
Wasserman
Wasserman
Schultz.
Schultz and the DNC. They rigged it so he wouldn't get the nomination.
it was rigged. Well, that's what I'm
It was
saying.
rigged.
Yeah, but
Yes.
what I'm saying now is, and getting back to what Vivienne said about the message, the fact is, the same leadership that rigged it against Bernie Sanders is still in power. There's still, Hillary Clinton's out there, and I know there's some Hillary Clinton supporters out there. I wish he would just go and lay in bed with Bill and shut up.
Well, let her go to the foundation
Because
and work the
she's
foundation. I
she's
agree
trying to
with
run
that.
again.
She's not going to run again, but I
Well,
agree with that. But
so-
she's going
so-
to
so
say
if-
something.
So if Vivienne says new message, however you want to frame it, new message or Bernie's message or
Right.
populist message,
Right.
you got to get the leadership of the party. Don't forget Perez, who's the head of the DNC now, is a Hillary,
Acolyte.
person.
Sure.
Nancy Pelosi. So if you don't change that, you're not going to get the
Well,
new
listen, if they can't look in the mirror and if we can see it, then they should be able to see it. And I'm not saying just adopt word for word everything that Bernie Sanders said, but certainly use his message.
Right.
And come up with ideas about those things he talked about that are really populist,
That's
ideas.
why- that's
and
why-
really would help the economy and really would help the general populace in this country.
That's why
And-
I'm pessimistic. You say I'm always
Well,
glass half empty, is because I
I
don't
like to
think.
think that people are smart.
Well,
smarter
I
than-
don't think the Democrat,
That run
the
the- that run these
Democratic
states.
leadership is going to change, and we're going to have the same problem we
if
had.
they don't change, they
with-
will have the same
as,
problem.
As Vivienne said
Because
about
the Republicans
messaging.
outsmart them every time.
So
I
A
got to
message.
give credit where it's credit is due. The Republicans
A
are definitely
message
smarter than the Democrats.
They lie and they make you believe it. I mean, you can't be better than that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best lawyer in the world can do that.
That's absolutely.
Trump criticized Hillary for being in bed with Goldman Sachs and making speeches. He
Yes.
hired people from Goldman Sachs. Whatever message there is doesn't resonate. So if I had to choose, if I'm a a coal miner we talked about in West Virginia. I have to choose between Trump and Hillary, and they're both. I'd say, well, listen, I know what she is. I'll take a shot with him. What do I? And,
No
and he
question.
kept saying it. He kept.
What do you have to
And
lose?
she
What
kept
do you
saying,
have to
and
lose?
she kept saying, we're going to close down all the coal. You went to West Virginia, so we're closing down all the coal mines. Well,
every stereotype
clear.
about
Yeah.
the liberal left that the Republicans put out there about their elitists and all that, she reinforced. She called the people that supported Trump a basket of deplorables. Well,
right.
you don't do that and expect that person to vote for you. You call me a deplorable,
Yeah,
you're not getting my
gonna vote for
vote.
you. I'm not going to vote for you.
Right.
We're getting back to, could get worse. What do we need to do to make it better? We need better leaderships. And getting back to the emperor, what he said, we need people who are more moral in the leadership. I think
Absolutely.
the people would embrace a moral leader, a person that said, "Listen, this is not for political reasons. I'm going to fire her. I don't care because it's the right
Exactly.
thing to do." And I think the emperor's right when he talks about the lack of morality.
There's no question about it, and that's why he's here.
As Vivienne said, the Democrats, if they even hope to challenge the Republicans and change it, need a firm, strong message and some moral
And a
leaders.
messenger.
And a
who-
believable,
who can bel-
messenger.
Now, Sanders was that person, by the way.
Oh, I think so.
His problem is he's already 74 years old, so. But somebody really has to do that. And I don't know who that person is, but hopefully in the next couple of years somebody will come to the forefront like Obama did. And Obama was that person, but he was black.
Yes, and he
that,
couldn't.
I mean,
No,
I
that's
hate to
correct.
have to say
But
that
that's
was the
correct.
problem, but that was the problem.
That was a problem.
If he had been white, it would have been a different. I think. It
If
might
he
have
had
been
had
a
the
different-
same moral, if there was a white person who had his moral fiber and
Right.
his intellect and
Right.
his passion for the
Absolutely.
people, there'd be no question we would be having a different conversation,
Absolutely.
and we
And
wouldn't have
that's
had a
what-
Donald Trump.
And that's why I
or
look
Mitch
at this
McConnell had
optimistically.
an iota of morality.
Yeah.
Because the day after Obama was elected, he said,
Yes.
"I'm going to everything he does."
Make sure he's a one-term
There
president.
was this guy from Kentucky, wherever he's from,
That's
McConnell. He
where
said,
he's from.
Yes.
He says, we're going to make sure he's only going to be a one-term president.
So
Disgusting thing to say, by the way. And
Oh.
he said it because he was black.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
no other reason, because he came forward with like the Health Care Act.
Yes.
The Health Care Act was a Republican idea. The only reason to oppose it was because it was Obama.
Yes.
Because he
They
was
put Obama's name in front of it, and there we
So
have.
clear.
So to make things better, we need to get the Democratic Party somehow internally to focus on what the Trump voters thought they voted for in voting for Trump, that they could get with a Democrat. They, the things
A
they need.
populist message.
The populist message.
But it has to be a populist message that tells the truth, too.
Well, yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's right.
I mean, I saw some Republicans during that debate that I said if I had to make a choice somewhere along the line, he might be the guy.
John
I would-
Kasich.
Can I tell
Like
you
Kasich, for instance.
I was getting ready to say that because I
There was
looked at the debates and I said,
He was the
you know
only
what?
honest guy
If my
up there.
choice is Hillary or Kasich, I'm voting Kasich.
I'm not. I
Well,
felt the same way.
He's very at
Yeah.
least
I felt
from
the
what
same
I
way.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Good.
Your
Emperor.
term, now we're limiting the vocabulary of the discussion to Obama, Republican, Democrat, black, and what we need to do to change, or what the country needs to do to change is the principle, not the personalities, because unless the principles change, you could put any personality in it.
Doesn't matter who's there.
America's a racist society built on and predicated on resentments and denials about what happened with slaves and what happened with white people being denied their presence of mind to be the superior because they were subjugating black people. And now the residual of that is a black man becomes the president of your country, and people resent that because he should have never gone to that status. So making America great again means let's take it back
Yes.
to where we can suppress
That's the
No,
cultural
I
thing
agree
we
with you
talked about
100%.
100%. Emperor.
And
There's no
Democrats
question
and
about it.
Dixiecrats and Republicans and nationalists, all of those titles will not eradicate people's hearts and their scores of scars and scars that people carry in their mindset. So
Listen, Republicans, Democrats don't mean a thing
Well,
because
that doesn't mean a
Republicans
thing.
today were Democrats years ago,
And
and
if-
Democrats today were
right,
Republicans
so
years
so
ago.
if people don't have a basic integrity about, if they don't have a basic integrity about what this country could be, then we're always going to start from ground zero every time it changes. You change seats, but you don't change the players change, but the seats.
So how do you
stay the
change
same.
their hearts? I mean, we talked about education because I think that that's a fundamental piece of changing a person's heart. Because what is it, the expression, if you know better, you do better?
Right, but
I
if
think
they-
the bottom line is probably education, and from education comes voting, because we have a more intelligent,
But-
populace,
Yeah.
and they'll vote. More people will vote, and the
you-
more people that vote, then you get somebody who's
You
going to
also-
be there that represents.
You also need an independent press that's not tied to corporate interests. or
Absolutely, absolutely need
But-
an independent press. It's a very
But
important.
But that's not supported by ratings and corporate interest.
Exactly.
That can come out and just report the news and report what's happening, worry about who's watching.
Could we
I
do away
mean-
with Twitter in this utopia?
I just point out one thing. Obama had a press secretary that had press briefings every day. How many of those were on television every
Very
day?
rarely were they on
How
TV.
many are on television now with
Every single one of them.
because it gets ratings and people
Because it
want
just
to watch. Has
want
nothing
somebody
to
to
do
screw
with
up, so you hear something that
Right.
will make them screw
So
up. Yeah.
we fundamentally need somehow to get the press not to be responsible for corporate interests and making money. Going back to I
To
think
Horace Greeley
right
and Thomas Paine.
and who Vivienne talks about on the show, Edward R. Murrow, that the press was independent of the corporate interest, and they didn't worry about sponsorship and making money and what their ratings were. I mean, I look even the cable news networks that they fire somebody because the ratings are wrong. It shouldn't be that way. It should be, if you're a newscaster, it shouldn't be what your ratings. Are you telling the truth? Are you reporting the news or not? It shouldn't be if you're going to because you have bad ratings. I mean, I just read an article where somebody in MSNBC is going to lose a spot because he doesn't have high ratings. But if they got, you can't do that.
Yeah,
now.
but that's business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it should, the press shouldn't be
Corporate
busy.
interest.
The
That's
press should not be.
Should be independent.
Right. When Edward R. Murrow did it, or Walter Cronkite, they were the news divisions of the networks were independent from the entertainment
But- and
division.
wait a
Now
minute.
they're not.
And they were not, the news divisions were not, they were not envisioned as being a profit
Right.
center. The news was always news, and journalism had standards, and it was not a profit
But
center.
that's not true, because you have to buy a newspaper. I mean, I sold newspapers when I was a kid.
Yes,
Right? It was 3 cents, and I would get a penny of that. And you had to buy the news. So people that couldn't afford to buy a newspaper, they didn't have a town crier anymore, and
but
they
we-
didn't see the
but
news.
they had Walter Cronkite and they had Edward R. Murrow. That's what
Well,
we're talking
yeah, but a
about.
lot of those people couldn't afford TVs either back then. So the point is,
But they had
people
radio.
didn't have.
They had there were
Now
shows on
news
ra-
is instantaneous
Yes.
with the internet.
Okay.
Okay, so when you report something instantaneously without the
Filtering,
time
no
to delve
filter.
into the issues, you're going to get different interpretations of what goes on. So an intelligent person,
Discernment.
I don't know who they are, but an intelligent person will understand that and will wait and listen to whatever NBC says and listen to whatever maybe Fox says and make their own determination as to what's
Yeah,
really
but-
the fact or not. So
Yeah, but where it is now, and the reason we have the problem is people only listen to what they want to hear.
well, that's always
So,
the case.
well, no, it's not always the
But
case.
if you
because
educate people, here's
if
the whole
if
point.
the news,
That's why I brought up.
if the news was just reported the news and didn't report the right wing slant or the left wing slant, people would get both
Right.
sides.
But
But they watch Fox or they listen to Rush Limbaugh
Right.
because he says what they want to hear.
Okay.
People watch MSNBC and Rachel Maddow.
Because that's what
they
they wanna
watch
hear.
because they want that's what they want to hear.
Okay.
So and you,
Why do I watch both, by the way?
Because you're intelligent, probably.
Okay, now here's the point. Here's the point I want to make. And I brought this up, I don't know if I brought it up on air or when we were having our general discussion. But when I went to law school, believe it or not, they didn't teach us the law. I didn't learn
That's
the
right.
law. I was taught how to look at a
How
situation
to look at an issue.
and see what the issues are.
Mm-hmm.
And then look at it both ways to make a determination as to what's right and what's wrong. And if this concept was taught in the schools, you don't have to go to law school to learn that.
Right.
You could learn that in elementary school when the kids' minds are really sponges. and teach them to look at things both ways
I agree.
and make a determination as to what's right and wrong. Then it wouldn't be a problem if Fox News was there and MSNBC was there and there was nobody, and even if there was nobody in the middle, people would be able to see what was right and what was wrong based on an intelligent examination of what the facts are here and there. That's why I keep bringing up, and I know I've mentioned this, I know it's becoming like my
That's okay.
mantra.
That's all right.
That
It's fine.
education is
Yes.
the absolute bottom line here. That education is going to foster our
Participation.
absolutely, and it's going to make voting better. It's going to make everything better. It's going to make our country better to eventually bring it to the place where it should be. I mean, we may never get to the place where it should be, but as close to where we should be as possible. And that's why I think that's the most important,
Okay,
fundamental thing.
I'm going to ask a question. I don't know how much time we have left. And I'll ask the Emperor this. Do you think the United States is moving in a direction where it'll get better, or you think it'll get worse?
Well, I think they're teams. It's competition in America, in the politics, and in societies of upper, middle, and lower class people, because what they're doing is drawing lines in the sand as to what's true. Perfect example, what Mark just,
Herb just talked.
Herb just talked about Fox News and CNN, or whichever one gives the interpretation. If they have two different interpretations of the same news, you know, how does one who's educated decide on which one is the truth? If they're both true, then it's not a quiz show. It's both pieces are giving off the same
So
truth.
you're saying it's not going to get better?
I'm not saying it's not going to get better. I'm saying that steps should be taken to rectify what is reported as truth and what is reported as for some general outcome. Fox News has an agenda for the news they put forth. That's the perception.
Yeah, right.
CNN
The
tries
point
to
is
come
the
straight
truth,
down the line.
sometimes isn't that evident. I mean, we know,
Yes.
as practicing attorneys, that the worst kind of evidence is eyewitness identification.
Oh, my goodness, this
And most
is-
people would think, well, how can you get any better evidence than that? Somebody said, yeah, that's him, I saw him, no question about it. Whereas experiment after experiment after
That's
experiment
true.
show it's the worst possible
But there are
evidence
some
possible.
truths. I mean,
That's not a truth. The point is, what is...
climate change is a truth. So if
Well,
Fox,
when you
if
talk
Fox-
about science, when
right,
now you're
but
talking about
if Fox News,
theorem.
if Fox News has people on that deny it and keep denying it, and the people that like Fox News or already believe that only keep watching Fox News, then they're not ever
Yeah,
going
but
to
then
believe.
what you have to, as an intelligent person, I think,
Well, no, the reason
what you have to do is see who are the people who are denying it. What are their credentials?
Right,
Who
but-
are the people that are in favor of it? What are their
Yeah.
credentials? And then you can make a valued opinion on it.
So
Right.
That's the whole
But-
point.
What I'm trying to get at is
Any screwball
It
can
could
stand
get-
up there and say science stinks. It's only a theory.
right, but people
They're
listen
just
to that,
making- make 'em believe
and
it,
if
so.
Fox News puts them on as a contributor,
Well, they
whatever
do. That
call
doesn't
it,
make them any better.
I know, but the people that watch it think they
Well,
have some
That's what
cred.
we're saying. We
So-
have to
so-
take those people that, not today,
So what
but
I'm
the
s-
people that watch it in the future are going to be better, we hope,
No,
are
what
going to
I'm-
be better
Better
educated and better informed to
What
make
I'm
their
saying is
own
that
informed opinion.
the topic of the show is it could get worse.
It could
and-
get worse. Anything could get worse.
And I would
No,
say,
but I'm saying, based on what I see, it will get worse.
and that's
Now,
good.
it must
That's a
get
good
bet-
thing.
It
That's a
must
good
get
thing.
better.
That's a good thing.
But based on what I'm seeing and what we debated here, it's going to get worse. And I know, you accuse me of saying that the glass is half empty all the time.
I didn't say all the time.
Well,
Just most of
I
the
gave the analogy of driving off the road, driving fast. I
Right,
think
that was
we're
a
at a
bit.
point now, where we're not gonna bounce back. And that's just, and I think the things we have to do, we mentioned them all, education,
yes.
job creation, retrain people in jobs that are necessary.
And
Check.
industries that in industries
Check.
that
I
could
check all
support.
those
Yes,
things.
yes.
Right, and I agree with all that, that's what we have to do.
And you
to
think
make
we're
it
just
better.
going to ground ourselves
I don't
right
thi-
to the bottom?
I don't think we can accomplish it.
It'll ever
I won't be here. In the long term, I don't think we'll be a democracy. I think we'll be a totalitarian dictatorship.
Okay, and I think not.
Okay.
I think not.
Emperor, you
What-
say?
Get worse is okay, whatever you call worse, because things change anyway. Things are destined to change. We don't want to stay.
Always.
We don't want to be stagnant.
We don't want to stay in the same place ever. So that as things change, you navigate the highway based on how well you can travel the highway. That's all I would say. No one knows the future, but from the past we know that things change, and they've been so bleak.
That's what direction they change.
Well, it doesn't matter that, because the Depression was a bad time for most people. World War I and II were bad times for people.
Sure.
You know, and so it's going to change. It's inevitable. Change is inevitable. We know that. So
Absolutely.
our frame of mind for the present moment is to improve the quality of life as best we can, treat our fellow man fairly with dignity and expect the same, and to provide for our family and children and show them the right way.
Is that
And
the
that's the
advice you give
message.
the president? Is
That's
that,
the message.
That's the message. Is
That's
that
the
advice you
message,
would
and
give
that's the
president?
message that
Yeah.
we have to go forward with. That'll
Yes.
create
I think
change for the good, not change for the
I
bad.
think it's a solid direction.
And I agree with you. When I look at the fact that the two-party system has failed us.
Well, here's the key.
Okay.
If it looks like that to you,
Yes.
and it looks like that to me too, it looks grim.
Okay.
Well, what about all these other people that are out there that should feel the same way we do? Why don't they feel it's
Because
just
they
as
feel
grim
powerless.
and make change?
But they feel
powerless.
Why should we
Well,
be
that-
different
you-
than anybody
you hit-
else?
You hit the net because they're powerless to change it.
But
You
they're not powerless
They are.
to change.
Come on.
That's the whole thing. They can
They can
vote.
vote. They can vote. That's
Irv,
bitches
that's
are.
bullshit. And I'm
Oh,
gonna say,
wow,
whoa,
okay,
whoa. You have Citizens
back to
United. You have Citizens United.
Okay.
You have voter suppression. You did this,
Gerrymandering.
You have gerrymandering. You had this election that just happened. More money was spent in this election for a congressional election than any congressional
about the
election in the
congressional election in
history
the
of
Doesn't
this
mean
country.
anything.
What do you mean?
This is
Look
Georgia.
what's happening. It does mean it.
Forget about the money aspect of
Okay.
it.
What do you
Because
mean?
the
Yes.
Republicans didn't spend nearly as much money as the Democrats did
I'm
in the
not-
presidential election. So money doesn't mean anything.
Now, let me just.
The
let me-
message is really the key.
Now, let me just say this, because we need to, we're almost at the end of our talk. Here's where we are. What we can all agree on is that there's certain things that are needed. There's education is needed because the electorate has to be educated. There are benefits. Everyone has to have the benefit of knowing that this country is going to, there are certain promises that we expect that this country gives to us. We have to acknowledge that, and we have to have respect for how other people feel about things. But universal health care should not even be a discussion.
That's what I
The
said.
fact that we are even sitting here talking about education and what needs to happen, that shouldn't be a discussion. Science shouldn't be a discussion. These are all of the things that have to be impacted. And back to your point, how does that get done? You've got to vote. Now, I know, Mark, you say that's bullshit, but
And not only is it bullshit, you have the Russians hacking the election.
Well,
and
you have to
controlling it.
prevent that.
And,
That's
well,
irrelevant.
you have a president.
You know it's happening,
You
prevent
have a
it.
president that doesn't even acknowledge it. How are you going to
Oh, you're
prevent
talking
it?
about today.
No,
What about
that's
tomorrow?
We have to.
yes, what about tomorrow? And that's where
Well,
we
the
are.
difference is tomorrow it's going to get worse.
And this is what we say. Tomorrow, in the immediate future, it is going to get. In the short term, it's
Maybe
going
yes.
to get.
Maybe.
If
There's
there's
no way
nothing else,
it can get better in the near term because the people who are in power
It's
are in
gotta
power
work
for the
itself
near term.
out.
and that's where
But
we
that
are.
I hope it gets way worse.
It's going to
I
get.
really do. I hope.
Wow.
I hope it. Why?
It'll
Because it'll wake the people up. That's why.
That's right.
The worse it gets, the better it's going to be in the long
Look at all
run.
the people that suffer when it gets that worse. Come on now. I mean,
But-
People are suffering anyway. It doesn't make any difference. They're
here's-
going to
here's-
suffer.
here's the
People are going to be knocked off of their health care, and people are going to get sicker,
Yeah,
and it's going to
that's
be
true.
more prevalent.
That's
And as a
true.
result of that, the change will
The
come.
change will come, and that's the only way it can come. So we
What
started
makes
this
it-
series.
I don't get it.
We
I know we're
started this
done.
series saying that it could get worse. It's going to get worse.
Right.
But guess what? It could get worse, and it must get better. But
Yes.
before it can get better, you have to engage. You have to participate. If you don't participate, what did Edward R. Murrow say? A nation of sheep will beget a government of wolves. We got a government of wolves, so you figure out who you are. Okay, so of course I'm animated and disgusted and talking to you like this in my school teacher mode, but I think that this series has been exciting because it has pointed to, yes, it could get worse, it will get worse, but it must get better. And you are the key to whether or not it gets better. So I want to thank Irv Madnick, Mark Hoffman, Emperor Selassie. I want to thank you for joining us for these past 4 weeks, and I hope that we have done our jobs. If we have made you think, because what do we say here, Conversations Across Time? We're not telling you what to think, we just want to make sure you are thinking. So hopefully we've engaged you and you are now thinking. Thank you and good night.
Conversations across time. Conversations across time. Conversations across across time, conversations 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 across time.